They shall not pass. The very first DLC for Battlefield 1 focusing on the French army releases tomorrow for premium pass holders. And I can hear you ask, what can we expect from it, Jack? Well, as it happens, I've got a load of new footage from the DLC. I'm going to go through everything starting with the new elite class, the Trench Raider. Up until now we had some information on the Trench Raider, but very little understanding of exactly how he was going to work. But after playing with him now I can confirm two things. He's not totally overpowered, and he isn't underpowered either. In fact, I think right now he's in a pretty good place. Now my opinion could change when more people start using him in a live environment, but I think right now it's pretty well balanced. So how does he work then? Well, he's a melee based character first of all, so his main weapon is a Raider Club, but don't fear, he does have a secondary weapon in the form of the No. 3 revolver if he gets into trouble. As well as that, he comes equipped with 3 grenades that he can lob around at his leisure. I was kind of worried that he was going to have like 10 or something, but it's only 3. They do recharge automatically over time though. And the last thing that he has, which may sound really bad at first, but when I explain it, it might make a bit more sense. He's got a medical crate. Now you may be thinking the same thing that I thought when I was told this guy has a medical crate. Well, surely that's going to make him super duper overpowered. Well, in practice, I think he really needs it. His whole purpose is to get up close and personal with enemies to melee them, and to do that, he's going to get hit by a lot of bullets. And if he didn't have any form of medic ability, he'd get rinsed down to half health every time that he moved forward, and well, he'd not only be not fun, but he'd be kind of pointless. Right now you can charge up to 1 or 2 enemies as they're shooting at you, and if you're good, you can get away with it, kill them both, heal up, and you're good to go. But if you try to push 3 or 4 guys head on who are all shooting at you, you aren't going to last very long. You may be an elite class, but you've still got to think about it. You've got to pick your battles, use your grenades and secondary in certain situations. As you can imagine, on maps like Fort Vaux and Verdun, it's perfect for the Trench Raider because he's up close and personal and there aren't any vehicles to be concerned by. On the other maps, for instance, you've got to be worried about getting taken out by tanks or planes. You get the picture. So this guy definitely comes into his own on the infantry focused maps. With the new DLC, we also get our first new behemoth, the Char 2C tank. We've had a good play with this already on the CTE. It's a monster, a supersized tank that can roam the battlefield and can one-hit kill tanks and really turn the tide of a game. Of course, it's also a huge target, so every man and his dog will be getting out their rocket guns, mines, grenades and targeting you. And to stop the tank from being unbalanced, it can't move very fast and can't turn particularly well either. You aren't going to get yourself out of a jam like you can with, let's say, a Renault tank. You need to think about where you're going a little more when you're using the new Behemoth. I actually really like the new Behemoth, and I think it's the best one that DICE have introduced into the game so far. The airship is a huge target in the sky that moves slow and can be taken down extremely fast if a team focuses on it. The train is only useful in my opinion on a map like Amiens, and can obviously only go where the track is. And the Dreadnought, well, if you're the driver, it's fun, you can rack up a 100 kill streak, but realistically, does it actually change the battle or does it just annoy the enemy team a bit? The Char 2C, however, because it's a big tank, you can drive it anywhere. And if you've got a skilled driver in it who isn't reckless with it, you can genuinely use this thing to turn the tide of a battle and win the game for your team when you were originally at a big disadvantage, which is the whole point of the Behemoth system, and I think the other Behemoths fail at accomplishing. I personally would love to see the Char 2C as a Behemoth on some of the other vanilla maps, but sadly I don't think that's going to happen. On Rupture and Soissons, the Char 2C is the new Behemoth, but of course on the other 2 maps, how will that work as they're infantry only? Well, the Behemoth system works a bit differently on Fort Vaux and Verdun. If one team is losing to the point where a Behemoth would normally enter the game, instead of getting the new tank, the losing team will get 4 elite classes spawn in their base. A Trench Raider, Flame Trooper and the 2 variants of the Sentry are the ones that we had. It makes no sense to have the Tank Hunter after all. If you die using the elite classes, they will respawn, so it's not just a one and done situation. What I would like to see though is some sort of indication for the losing team that they're available. Right now, if you have, say, a train come in, it has a UI element that says you have a train and how much health it has left. It's quite clear. With the elite classes though, once they've been used and someone has died, unless you spawn back into base and keep checking it, there isn't an obvious indication that they're back and ready to be picked up. so I think that some small UI element is needed there, just to let the losing team know that they're available. As well as the elite classes when a team is losing, they'll also get access to a new stationary weapon, the Siege Howitzer, which can be operated by one player and acts as an artillery of sorts. And it works very much like a mortar's aiming system does. It looks pretty epic sitting on the top of the hill on Verdun Heights, firing down. The one thing that we haven't talked about yet are the new maps, and more specifically the one we didn't get to play on the CTE Verdun Heights. I really enjoyed playing on this map, especially as an infantry based player, and that's one thing that I really like about this DLC. There are 2 vehicle focused maps but also 2 infantry maps, ensuring something for both types of players. Verdun Heights, as the name would suggest, is primarily fought on an upward slope, but thanks to cleverly placed trenches and ruins, it does still offer a good amount of cover for you to move. The backdrop as well of the burning trees makes it look extremely impressive. Soissons and Rupture we've already played in the CTE, but I do think they both have some vehicle oriented issues. Soissons is meant to be heavily dominated by armour, but I think sometimes it's a bit overwhelming, and then Rupture is dominated by planes because of how strong planes currently are in the build of the game. Couple that with some rather small cap radiuses, and it means that an OK pilot can do a lot of damage without really putting much effort in. The new DLC will also see the introduction of 2 new operations. One of them will actually be the first infantry only operation as well. Devil's Anvil will have Fort Vaux and Verdun Heights, and then Beyond the Marne will see you fighting on Soissons and Rupture. From what I played of the operations, I liked them, especially Devil's Anvil, as it was a nice change of pace having only infantry across 2 maps. There is a bunker on Verdun Heights though that proved to be very troublesome to attack on operations, requiring all 3 of our battalions and many elite classes just to get in. It reminded me a lot of the terrible map design of Monte Grappa, that particular bunker. The thing with Verdun Heights is that on that bunker objective you have the defensive team up the hill defending the bunker, but you also have the team across to your right on a hill, meaning that they've got a bit of a crossfire on you, making it that much harder. What's a bit more mad though is that on Soissons the attackers get 6 tanks on the first points, which honestly I think is a bit crazy. I get that it's meant to be a huge tank assault, but if you do the math, that in theory could practically house the entire attacking team in heavy tanks, and I think that definitely needs to be looked at and reduced. Of course, we've got a new game mode called Frontlines, which I'm going to cover in detail in another video on its own, and the new weapons, which I've also already covered in a video. Assault gets the Ribeyrolles 1918 and the Shogun inertial shotgun, the Medic gets the RSC 1917, Support the Shosho, and finally the Scout class gets the Lebel model 1886. As well as that, we get some new melee weapons and some skins only for the new French DLC weapons, which is pretty cool. As well as that, a new heavy tank in the form of the Saint-Chamond assault tank, something you'll see a lot of on the new maps. I will say this though about that tank, because of its angled design, I do find that I get a lot more ricochets when hitting it with a rocket gun, so you've got to think about where you're placing the shot a bit more to guarantee a proper hit. In closing, I think there's a lot to love in the new DLC content. There's a good blend of weapons as well as a good blend of maps for both vehicle lovers and infantry players. The new Elite offers something different without being overpowered, and the maps visually look stunning. I think They Shall Not Pass sets a good bar for the future of Battlefield 1 DLC, but I think that perhaps Battlefield 1 would have benefited greatly if this first proper DLC pack came out a couple of months earlier to keep player counts as high as possible, and those that are still playing interested in the game. It won't be long really before all of these new maps are played to the death and all of the weapons have been unlocked. And it's going to be at least another 3 to 4 months I reckon before we get the next DLC titled In the Name of the Tsar, so I'd love to see another free map drop or free weapons pack in the game before that comes out to keep things fresh. Just kind of drop a couple of free updates in between that to keep us all on our toes and experiencing new content. And as I've always said, since BF3 days, I do worry about paid DLC maps splitting the community and whittling down the Battlefield player base, and I foresee that in a few weeks after They Shall Not Pass launches, especially on PC, it's going to be very hard to find populated DLC servers running these new maps through matchmaking in particular, which is a shame as I think for the most part they're really good. I think it's time EA stepped up to the plate and released all new Battlefield maps for free and monetized in different ways for DLC content. There's plenty of options available there. Other AAA shooters like Halo 5, Titanfall 2 and Rainbow Six Siege have free DLC maps across the board and do just fine. Sadly, I think it's too late for BF1 to change the model now, but perhaps future Battlefield titles would greatly benefit by adopting this sort of policy. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, leave a thumbs up down below and let me know your thoughts. If you didn't, a thumbs down, and I'll see you in the next one.